It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interview. Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Throws, ends it. Yes! Caught! Touchdown! Did he get it?
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome on in. It's another edition of the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen, Jason Walker. We're on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, streaming on 1069thefan.com and the 1069 The Fan mobile app. Also, you can tune in and join the program on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line, 435-339-0321 to text into the program. Shortened hour this hour. We got Utah Jazz basketball coming up. Jazz are in Boston to take on the Celtics. Tip off at 5:30, which means pregame will be at 5:20 with the Utah Jazz Radio Network here on The Fan. So in the short time we have together, Jason, we got to get a lot in here in the last little bit here. We've talked a lot about basketball, volleyball, soccer in the last hour. And in the time we have together here, let's talk about some football. Utah State had a bye week. They had the open week, opportunity to do some self-evaluations, get guys healthy, figure out what they've got left in the tank for the final couple of games on the schedule, the last 4 games. And Bronco met with the media today. Unfortunately, I was not able to be there, but you were there, and he talked about some things about where the status of the team, basically, where they're at right now before they close out the rest of the season.
Yeah, so there's different things to talk about with, what they did during the bye week, what they're trying to do in terms of adjustments versus what areas they just need to play better in versus what things they need to consider changing. So, yeah, a bunch of different things to follow up on, including things about like the fact that Utah State's had 2 bye weeks, and in both bye weeks they played somebody who also had a bye week that same week. Just kind of a weird coincidence, and if whether or not that's something the Mountain West is seemingly focused on or not. So a bunch of different little things that,
Yes,
that we
it
asked
is
Bronco
odd.
Mendenhall about, peppering with questions. We got to the end and I was like, I almost had too many questions, but I was able to pretty much ask everything I needed to. It's not like they're shutting me down, telling me I can't answer questions.
So one of the things that's interesting when you have an early bye week, it's like an opportunity to fine tune some things and that you were working on in the fall camp. But if it's a late bye week, it's almost like a chance to get healthy, but it's also an opportunity to fine tune some things about who you really are. And do you really know who you really are at this point in the season?
Yeah, basically, I think the health is a big one. There's not a whole lot you can do at this point to like change who you are. So it's about becoming the best version of who you are. You can't make sweeping changes to your scheme and all that, but you can make minor adjustments. And then just getting healthy, because that helps you be the best version of who you are. The Aggies are a little banged up, especially more so on defense. They've gotten mostly healthy on that offensive side, where who they've had since the beginning of the season is pretty much who's healthy now for the most part. The whole starting offensive line is there, running backs, wide receivers. They lost some wide receivers preseason, but they're not coming back anyway. So, but on defense, there's a few guys they're missing they could use back. Hopefully they can get some of those guys back, especially in the front 7. But yeah, as Bronco kind of mentioned, it was a good time to have the bye week happen for them.
I think the bye week came at a really good time, a chance for rest and renewal, and just a recalibration for all in our program. Players had a great chance to lift and run and, again, review the season to this point, same with the coaches. And, yeah, we're anxious and looking forward to getting back to work and returning home to play.
Yeah, it does come at a good time because this team needs to evaluate a lot of things and also get guys healthy. But because you're right, they don't fundamentally change who they are at this point of the season, but they can make adjustments.
Yeah, there's improvements to be made still. There's improvements that need to happen on the offense. I didn't quite have time, or I think I asked Jimmy Liston this, but I didn't get a chance to cut up that audio quite yet. But the offense has gone a bit stale at points. The defense has had some kind of frustrations where they've not been at, and I think they kind of, and myself is included in this, we've kind of overblown that, because this is a team that in the last 3 weeks they've given up, or in the last 2 weeks they gave up like 25, 30, and I think 31 points or 33 points in the last 3 games. It's not great, but it's not last year's defense, which was constantly giving up 40 spots to the other team.
Yes.
So some of that has been slightly exaggerated. I think it was
and some of these points recently are not, offensive touchdowns or offensive scores that the defense gave up.
So I think, and again, I'm including myself in this, getting caught up in the criticism of the defense. It's less criticism than maybe they deserve. Not that they're blameless. You talk about Bronco Mendenhall's playing in context. Like, in that sense, the defense has been bad playing in context, because when they need a stop, they've often not gotten one. Except against San Jose State when they did it twice.
Yes.
So that they didn't. What do you know? They won a game. They play in context, and all that stuff that Bronco keeps talking about. When they did it, they won. When they haven't, well, you lose games against Hawaii and New Mexico, though the New Mexico loss isn't looking as bad.
True.
After this
they went into Vegas and beat the Rebels. But talking about at this point of the season, trying to figure out as a coaching staff, what do we adjust, or what do we just try to execute better? What do we just need to fine tune? Like, what are we doing okay, but we can just do better? Or what do we just need to scrap and try something different? You kind of weighed in on that a little bit as well.
It's the volume of plays, and the sample size really is huge. So if uncertain, kind of continue on the same path. If the sample size clearly shows not the right productivity or et cetera, then usually schematic or alignment or adjustments need to happen. So usually the volume of plays with the results help.
Yeah, and I followed him a little bit, but that was kind of where he's like saying, hey, because I was asking, like, what leads you to adjust or just to execute better? And his answer basically was, the volume of plays. Like, if you play one game and it doesn't work, well, go back to the well and see if it works.
Yeah.
But we have a pretty big sample size. So Bronco's going to know, what do they need to adjust and what do they need to just get better at? And then I asked a follow-up, like, what areas do you think, need to be improved versus what areas need to be changed?
Mostly we'll stay away from the details, just simply as, before we play a game, that's really information that might be helpful to the opponent. But we frame the decisions, again, based on the volume of plays and then really the trends that you see from that, and if it's reoccurring, and then try to assess, really, is it schematic, is it personnel, and or game management, which, can any of those things could be part of it. With ultimately, we need more consistency.
And that was kind of the question I expected, because if I were to play the question, I kind of couched the question in with, I expect him to not go into detail. Because if I say, well, what are you going to change about your team? And it's like, well, we're going to change.
Well, you're not going to say this anymore, even though it shows a lot on tape.
So, so obviously I didn't really expect him to give any specific details, but hey, well, why not try? So, because I asked that follow-up. But, they're going to know what areas they need to change, because we talked last week about adjustments to the defense. Do adjustments need to be made? Talked about Nick Howell, how his defense just over the last 4 or 5 seasons hasn't been working wherever he's been. So is there an adjustment that needs to happen? And they'll key in. And I seem to remember a conversation happening where Bronco or somebody said that New Mexico shifted some of the things it did. I tried to go back and find that, but
it wasn't Bronco who said that. It was an opposing coach who observed that.
Oh, was okay, because I just sworn I remembered that conversation happening somewhere where New Mexico had changed some things and it had worked better for them later in the season. So I was like, okay, they have done it. So can they do something like that over the next few weeks, where this would be a heck of a time to have a stretch where you go like 3-1, 2-2, 2-2 at least to get to a bowl game, 3-1 to maybe even shake up the tree in the Mountain West Championship run. 3-1 probably wouldn't get you to the Mountain West title game, but like you sure shake up
You'd
the
be
ladder.
very
a little
disruptive in the process.
bit. Yeah, you shake the ladder and somebody would fall off if they went 3-1 now these last few games.
Yeah, they can determine the outcome or who participates in the conference title game, even if they're not the ones participating in the conference title game.
Yeah, because they got
based on who they face.
3 of the 4 teams they're facing are in contention for the title game at this point. UNLV, Boise, Fresno. Nevada, sorry, you're not contending. They have like 4 or 5 losses in Mountain West play already. They're not going to the title game. But yeah, this is a time for Utah State to make some late improvements. They've got to come up with a surprise win because they're favored in 1 of the next 4 games. So they got to steal a game somewhere if they're going to go to a bowl game. And that's still very much the goal for this team. Even if they don't like outright admit it, they're not going to come out and say, "Oh yeah, we're gunning for a bowl game." It's like they're gunning for a bowl game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of the bar set for if you are a somewhat successful program, even though it's your reward for mediocrity is going to a bowl game, just being even 6-6. But that's still kind of the benchmark of, are you doing at least some things right for a football program?
It's still a reward.
Yes.
It's still a Scooby snack. Still want it.
But this is a team getting ready for a home game on Saturday, and they've been very good at home. They've not been good on the road.
Yep.
And Bronco addressed that as well. Like, what's the difference?
Hence, there's some uniqueness to it. The results are the results, so I think that's matter-of-factly what you have to go with. And when we look on the road, when we look at how we played on the road, not quite as much energy, not as much enthusiasm, not as much presence, a little more flat. But I think if you look further, there's some things to acknowledge that. So Texas A&M was a good team. Vanderbilt's a good team. Both pretty good trips and early morning starts. Hawaii's a unique challenge, and quite frankly, going back to UNM was a unique challenge. So there's some subplots within each. However, the outcome is the outcome. So I think you have to default to that. And we'll look at how possibly the preparation for road play as well as maybe the routines that we incorporate for the rest of the way they might change.
So I agree with him. There were subplots in a lot of these games, but he also touched on something that was a question that I was asking you to ask on my behalf. Yeah. If there are games, which we have seen, certainly the New Mexico game was loud and clear, if the team doesn't seem to have that energy, if the team is flat, as he has said, sometimes on these road games, a team has not had that same level of energy. So how do they generate that energy? How do they get that juice?
There's different types of personalities on our team, both coaching staff and players, and certainly they're targeted and they know they share more of the load in those games, but that's really just them being them and doing so more intentionally. So we work to try to leverage those players and those leaders to have the most influence, and as you can see, still work to be done.
Yeah, and kind of going back to when you talk about the road versus away, it's like, yeah, the Texas A&M and Vanderbilt really kind of spoils the statistical analysis because you're just talking about 2 top 10 teams. That's just
they're very good.
Yeah, it's hard to really put that into a context when you're looking at the whole stats. But then you look at Hawaii and New Mexico, like that's where. After the Vanderbilt game, I think Bronco had happened to make an offhand reference. So they were like, they were 3-0 at home. They were 0-2 on the road. But the 2 on the road were A&M and Vanderbilt. You had 2 more games on the road. That's at Hawaii, at New Mexico. Those are conference teams. Those are peers. These are teams that Aggie fans were expecting to win both of those games.
Subplots or no subplots.
Yeah.
Those were games that should have been high energy, ready to go, and opportunities to win.
Yeah, and they just
based on the way the team was playing,
and they just didn't seem to have the energy. They faded in the second halves of those games, and just did not make the plays, offense or defense, in either game to win and make that game competitive late. Again, not just win, but make it competitive. Because by the end of the fourth quarter of both of those games, late in the fourth quarter, those games were already in hand for the opponents. So. There's just something just completely missing from, or at least partially missing, from Utah State's performance on the road. Like the one time they've played kind of okay on the road was at Vanderbilt, and that was only on offense. On defense, you gave up 55 points. That's your season worst. I don't care if it's Vanderbilt. You gave up 55 points.
Yeah.
Nobody else has allowed Vanderbilt to score 55 points. That's what you allowed them to do. So, but on offense, they put up some numbers. But yeah, in the ensuing road games against conference peers, they couldn't put it together, and that's something that's got to change because you still got 2 more road games, and you're likely going to have to steal one of them, unless you plan on beating Boise State, albeit that might be a little easier to do.
Yeah, it was such a weird weekend in the Mountain West. Boise State lays an egg. Fresno State looks amazing.
Boise lost their quarterback. I don't know if he's out for the year or not, but
yeah, and that's been a real problem. There's been a lot of discussion and debate about quarterbacks at Boise State lately, even before he got hurt.
Yeah.
And then UNLV loses to New Mexico. So it was a wild, interesting weekend. Of course, San Jose, they play a game. They win a game, but it's within a possession.
Yeah.
As things have gone for all season.
Yeah, it's just, as I was saying, the Mountain West is basically drunk this week.
It's a wild one. That's going to do it for us on a very shortened show today. We got Utah Jazz basketball coming up next. Don't forget Utah State basketball in the Spectrum tonight. KVNU game day coverage will begin at 6 on 102.1 FM, 610 AM, KVNU. We'll be back at it again here on the Full Court Press tomorrow at 4.
Hi, this is Brooke Stevenson.
Ty Smith.
And David Castor with Adams Wealth Advisors. We're truly honored to be named Best of Northern Utah Gold winner for the Best Financial Planner. This community means everything to us, and we're grateful for every customer who